There's more to Kings Island Tricks and Treats Fall Fest than just trick-or-treating. Sure, you'll find rides, hay bale mazes, and pumpkin decorating, but you'll also find craft beer tastings and seasonal cocktails, pumpkin bread pudding, and Day of the Dead fries. It's all here at Tricks and Treats Fall Fest, only Saturdays and Sundays now through October 31st. Enjoy unlimited visits this year and next with a 2022 Gold Pass, only at visitkingsisland.com. It's amazing in here.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
Seems like a lot of you folks actually really enjoyed me starting yesterday's podcast by yelling, "Let me talk to you for a minute about Michael Porter Jr." Well, I don't have that guy for today's show, so don't get too excited. I'm going to try to have some opening monologues on the podcast going forward when the situation dictates it. And I didn't think that much from yesterday warranted a monologue today, because truly, while there are other guys we may need to deep dive, I don't think any of them has quite the same panic surrounding them as Michael Porter Jr. Although I will admit, James Harden, Damian Lillard, among first-rounders, people are starting to get a little bit uptight. We already talked about Harden, though. And I would feel similarly about Dame. If you want to go make a buy low offer on him, have at it. Anywho, welcome to the show. You're in. You made it. This is Fantasy NBA Today, a hoop ball presentation. I'm your host, Dan Vespris. And you guys know the drill at this point. This is your average, run-of-the-mill Thursday show, provided today is Thursday. I think it is. It's very difficult for me to keep track of what day it is these days. News of the day, yesterday recap, and some homework for tonight. Before tomorrow's show, we'll talk to the great Aaron Brewski, a little draft day review, what he's got going on in the NBA so far. We can talk a bit about the Aaron Brewski Very Premium Podcast. That's the name of it, as part of the Fantasy Pass. And that'll again come up on tomorrow's program. As far as news goes, a few of the things actually stem from injuries suffered during yesterday's ball game, so we'll get to those when we do our recap. A couple of slightly, we'll call them somewhat important tidbits. Kristaps Porzingis already ruled out for tonight. Daniel Gafford already ruled out for tonight. Not a big surprise there on either of those. Malcolm Brogdon, who we'll talk about as well, ruled out for Friday already, tomorrow's games. And P.J. Washington still doubtful for tomorrow's games, also on the Hornets. Couple of new names creeping onto the board, guys that we didn't really... one of them I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute. Nicole Jokic, questionable for tomorrow, did not practice today. And Terry Rozier, upgraded to questionable for tomorrow. That's a good sign. The upgrade generally leads to playing, although oftentimes that's the last-minute upgrade. Like if a guy gets upgraded from out to doubtful at the last minute, sometimes they all of a sudden go from doubtful to in. It's this weird last-second progression. The fact that he's been upgraded from doubtful to questionable a day in advance, I don't know that we can read too much into that, but it does mean he's getting closer. But let's go ahead and dive into yesterday's recap, because the injury tidbits for today are not all that compelling. Speaking of Charlotte, a team we just talked about with their players missing, they beat Orlando 120-111. Good start to the year for the Hornets, who are pretty deep this year and kind of withstanding a couple of those injuries. P.J. Washington, Terry Rozier. Kelly Oubre, who we thought might be a reasonable streamer, was awful. Mason Plumlee, who we kind of knew would be a decent streamer, was decent. No surprises there, really. If you're freaking out about LaMelo Ball, don't. 7.6 boards, 3 assists, 3 steals, bad shooting game. We knew the shooting was going to level off at some point. I don't know exactly how long it's all going to take for him to kind of settle into where we expect him to be, but dude was shooting like 52%. Now he's down to 43%, but he's still number 12, thanks to the fact that he hasn't missed a free throw yet, and he's at 26-6 with 2 steals and 3.5 3-pointers a game. He's going to come back. He's going to continue to come back to earth. He'll miss a couple free throws. Probably not going to score 20 points with 3.5 3-pointers a game, but I guess it's conceivable. But regardless, this type of game we knew was coming. He wasn't going to be like the number 3 guy in fantasy the whole year, because to get to that apex, you pretty much have to be really good in both percentages, and I don't think he is. Again, this sounds like we're knocking him. Rather, it was sort of a missed opportunity to try to get a first-rounder for him, when the absolute best scenario for LaMelo is probably to be around top 20-something, low 20s on a per-game basis. So he'll come back towards that, and that's still very good. That's where you got him, probably. So if he hits ADP, that's terrific, but there was this little window where you might have been able to turn him into a first-rounder. He got into foul trouble early. I know it's hard to tell because he only had 2 fouls in the ball game, but he picked up those first 2 right out of the chute. And then, again, this second unit for Charlotte's been really, really good lately. So Ish Smith did a great job, and they didn't have to go back to LaMelo on a game where he wasn't playing all that well. Cody Martin played well. Jalen McDaniels played well off the bench. Miles Bridges continues to be a damn revelation. He's been unbelievable. He's number 1. He's the number 1 player in fantasy right now by totals. I suppose we should look at per-game stuff. He's still very good. He's number 6 per game. LaMelo is number 22 per game, which I think is about where we expected he would max out. I don't think we had Miles Bridges at number 6 at any point this year. Still, we have to take a look at this one as well. I had someone ask me on Twitter, why do I call a guy like Miles Bridges a sell high? Could he really just be better this year? And the answer is yes. Yes, he could just be better this year, but not this much better. We have to be able to analyze things in grades, where for Bridges, he's taken 18.5 shots a game so far this year. There aren't that many dudes that take that many shots. Like, he's inside the top 25 in field goal attempts so far this year. He's also shooting almost 4.5 free throws per game. So, like, we're talking about a guy whose usage is just to the moon at the moment. His steals, right now, the steal rate is crazy high. His rebounding rate is pretty damn high. His shooting is ridiculous. That's the thing that you can really grab onto. He's not going to shoot 53% with 3 threes on 18 shots per game this year, and he's probably not going to shoot 91% on a high-volume free throw. He's just been amazing. The second half to that, though, is what is your target? Where do we think he falls back to? Because right now you're looking at it and you're saying to yourself, this guy could fall back, and he still would be really good. I would say top 50 is probably a pretty fair target for him. If you look for someone inside the top 50, that's a return that I'd be comfortable with on Bridges, someone that you know is settling in there. Perhaps you could even target someone who's currently settled in that 40 to 50 range that maybe you feel has a whole lot of upward trajectory waiting to kick in. Like, I don't think you're going to get James Harden. He does happen to sort of fall in that mix. The other guys between 40 and 50 probably don't quite cut it. Niko Vucevic is at 36. I don't think you could get him, but there's another guy that has upward mobility still. Could you get Domantas Sabonis? Is it 25? Probably not.
There's more to Kings Island Tricks and Treats Fall Fest than just trick-or-treating. Sure, you'll find rides, hay bale mazes, and pumpkin decorating, but you'll also find craft beer tastings and seasonal cocktails, pumpkin bread pudding, and Day of the Dead fries. It's all here at Tricks and Treats Fall Fest, only Saturdays and Sundays now through October 31st. Enjoy unlimited visits this year and next with a 2022 Gold Pass, only at visitkingsisland.com. It's amazing in here.
You should be saving for the future, but savings accounts suck, and investing can be scary. We combine the ease of savings with the real returns of investing. We call it Save Vesting, and it's only available in our new app, Stairs. Stairs offers 4 to 6% returns, no fees, and you can withdraw anytime. Do your future a favor. Visit StairsApp.com today.
So, I don't know. A couple of things to look at, that's for sure. The names of guys in that mix. Maybe a Jaron Jackson Jr. who's in the 50s after basically fouling out in a quarter and a half yesterday. There's a guy with infinite upside that hasn't hit any of it, and he's already inside the top 60 so far this year. He couldn't throw a stone in the ocean at the moment, and then foul trouble. He was top 25, actually, before yesterday's ball game, which is kind of the amazing part of it. So that's the Miles Bridges story. Orlando side, Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter Jr., those guys continue to be fine, provided they don't have to play the same position on the floor. Cole Anthony's actually been decent lately, and I know I've ragged on him on the podcast as someone who generally fits more in the points league build, but he's actually been good enough at the free throw line, along with good enough popcorn stuff, that he's been able to overcome his terrible shooting, and he's just inside the top 80 right now. So go ahead and roll the dice on Cole Anthony. Nobody's really coming for his usage at the moment, because Jalen Suggs is currently overwhelmed by the NBA. They're not going to play the veterans more than a few minutes a ball game, generally, what veterans they have. Terrence Ross, I guess he got 30 minutes yesterday. And Anthony's the orchestrator. He's the creator on that team, and there really isn't another one, besides potentially Suggs down the line, until Markelle Fultz gets back. Okiki's not really a creator either, nor is Jonathan Isaac. Those guys are going to take a lot of stuff away from Franz Wagner, from the two big men when they return, but it's really only Fultz that's threatening Anthony. Cole's been kind of the horse on that team. So go ahead, pick him up. It seems like he's being allowed to sort of just do enough to where his deficiencies are being overwhelmed by the positives, and just ride it until the wheels come off, because they will eventually, and when we get there, then you make that call. Atlanta, New Orleans, not a whole lot to read into in this ball game. Nikhil Alexander-Walker had one of the games we were kind of, I don't want to say warning you guys about, but the reason that I was generally afraid to draft him in fantasy leagues, he was going like around 90, and he's actually ahead of that right now, despite shooting 35% from the field. Here's the thing. I'd love to say, well, a mean reversion is coming for him. It's probably just going to be a bad shooting year. But currently, because Josh Hart is out and Zion Williamson is out, he's been able to get enough shots up to get to 15 points, 2+ 3-pointers, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 2.4 combined defensive stats. As those things taper off, which they will, this is not a guy you expect to average 7 rebounds a game. I don't care how good of a rebounding guard he is. They just don't. Guards don't average 7 rebounds a game. You can find me an example of it. Okay. Can you show me any consistent examples of it? A good rebounding guard is like near 5. So 7's coming down. Steals and blocks are coming down. Points, threes, I guess that could hold. Free throw percent, we don't really know. It's up this year, but it could just be a good one. But right now, he's sort of got nowhere to go but down, despite the low field goal percent. Even if that comes up a little bit, all these other things are way over their skis. So, again, it's sort of a similar situation to what we talked about earlier. He's got plenty of room to operate while guys are out. But if you can move him after a good ball game, I would condone it. Malcolm Brogdon left their loss to Toronto in the third quarter with a sore hamstring, so it begins Barney Gumble style with Brogdon. We knew the injury was coming at some point. We were hoping it might be, a few more weeks into this season. He's already been ruled out for tomorrow, as we already mentioned earlier in the podcast, which means it's TJ McConnell time, finally. Rick Carlisle was giving Malcolm Brogdon way too many minutes here to start the year. They had to know that the injury was en route if you got him playing 37 minutes per game, including this 22-minute half ball game. So he was higher than that. He was at like 39 minutes a ball game, which, by the way, answers the question of why wasn't TJ McConnell playing? Because they were overplaying Brogdon to try not to lose every ball game, and now they got burnt. It was a bad strategy. I think they were just trying to stay afloat until Karis LeVert gets back, and it didn't work. So McConnell's got a wide open road, and I'm glad we didn't punt on him after a couple of ball games, because the minutes Brogdon was playing, that was never going to be sustainable. Elsewhere, no real changes on the Indiana side. Toronto side, Chris Boucher got to play a little bit. He got up to 18 minutes in this ballgame, and he was really only like a made shot away from a useful fantasy line. Obviously, we want more. Not going to try to play this off as some sort of massive victory, but it is a baby step in the right direction. Precious Achiuwa got 27 minutes in this blowout. It didn't really turn into a blowout until late. You could see the starters on the Toronto side generally still played their normal minutes. So this is pretty much the rotations that Nick Nurse was going to use, maybe outside of like the last minute. 2 minutes at absolute most. Kem Birch, 19 and a half minutes. I got to ask the question, where did the extra 4 minutes for Boucher come from? They could come from all sorts of places. Pascal Siakam's return is going to complicate things. That probably puts Delano Blanton in the 0 minutes category. You probably see... It's possible that Boucher goes back down to 0. It really is. I think we might see Scotty Barnes lose a couple of minutes. Gary Trent probably loses a couple of minutes when Pascal Siakam comes back. They're not going to all come from one place. Because right now, OG Anunoby's mostly playing a stretch 4 for this team, but they have a lot of guys that are kind of interchangeable in terms of switching on defense and whatever positions you want to call it on a basketball court. So they'll have some questions to be sure. Achua's going to lose some time as well. But on the Boucher front, I get it, man. This is frustrating. It's extraordinarily frustrating. We probably used the 7th round pick on him, which again, 7th round pick doesn't pan out. It's not the end of the world. But you could see it even in this one. He tried to make some better plays. They gave him a little bit more wiggle room to get out there and run a little bit. Still got his 2 steals and his block in 18 minutes a game. His defensive stats are always crazy. And now, if he can work himself back into any kind of usage, because you could see he was very passive. He wanted to be a team player and get his minutes back. And he had the lowest usage of anybody on the team that actually took a shot. Lowest. Lower than Birch, lower than Achua. That's not generally his style. So stick with it here. Remember, we are 1 week into the season at the moment. Good stuff from OG and Freddie VanVleet and Scotty Barnes. And actually kind of Gary Trent also, though he missed a bunch of shots. And, that's how that goes. But good to see VanVleet. He's now back on track. And after a very rough start, he's number 53. Didn't take long. With that giant assist game, and now this well-rounded affair. Washington beat Boston 116-107. Celtics are weird right now. Jason Tatum looks off. Jaylen Brown looks hurt. Marcus Smart, we know he's dealing with a migraine. The big guys looked good. Time Lord, double-double with 4 blocks. Al Horford, double-double with a pair of 3s. Dennis Schroeder played well, although apparently he didn't defend well late. I didn't actually watch that part live. So Boston lost. On the Schroeder front, it really does seem like that 6th-man gunner role is his. He took 15 shots. If he's getting that many looks in a ball game, and I don't know that that's going to happen every night, but 15 shots is more than enough for Schroeder to hit even category league value. He was a guy I was eyeballing more in points formats, but he's probably a category league guy now. So go ahead and flip him into the roster if you hadn't already. Montrezl Harrell gets a massive bump on the Washington side with Daniel Gafford out. Hurt his quad early in yesterday's ball game, and obviously didn't hit fantasy value. Bradley Beal took him 25 shots to get to 17 points. He'll be okay. Beal's rusty as hell. He'll be fine. But Harrell's the guy as you look towards the future and whatever's going on with Daniel Gafford. When he comes back, you readjust. A lot of this stuff right now is injury-related. Miami beat Brooklyn. Jimmy Butler, 17-14, 7, 4 steals and a block. Didn't even shoot the ball well. I do love me some Jimmy Butler. That's for darn sure. You guys know I'm all over the Butler freight train. He's number 11 in category leagues right now, per game basis. And that's after a couple of bad ones, actually, to start the year. But he's been pretty awesome since then. I still think Butler's going to end up being one of the biggest draft day steals. Yahoo adjusted his pre-rank up after having him way down low early. And that was one that we attacked with full force until their adjustment. And then we still did. I took him on the turn in some spots. Everybody's like, oh, but his ADP's like 18 or 19. I'm like, yeah, but you know what? That's so far off that I'll take him half a round even before that at the front of a draft. Dwayne Dedmon, too good of a backup right now. So Adebayo's minutes are down a little bit. His assists are way down. And yeah, some of that has to do with Kyle Lowry being in town, the fact that Miami now has 2 ball handlers. But at the same time, this is a team that Like, that was Goran Dragic's spot when he was healthy. And I know that Lowry is a better facilitator than Dragic, but there's kind of a learning process happening in Miami right now. And they're fortunate that they're winning ball games while they're learning. I want to point out, though, someone responded, my tweet storm last night, I said something like, I expect Adebayo's assists to come back up a little bit. And they said, no, they won't. I said, okay, well, that's completely misunderstanding the subtleties of the universe. Adebayo right now is at 1.5 assists per ball game, which is not like, that's bad even for a big man. Last year he averaged 5.4. The year before that he was at 5.1. The year before that he was behind Hassan Whiteside and still averaged 2.2 assists in 23 minutes per ball game. So if you guys think at 1.5 is going to stick, you're wrong. You're flatly wrong. He's playing 30 minutes a ball game, which is down 3 from last year, probably because Dwayne Dedmon has been so good. And also because Miami had a couple of blowouts in there. Orlando was a blowout. Milwaukee was a blowout. Indiana was a closer ball game, and he played 39 minutes in that one. So there you go. The other side of this is dudes he's passing to have to make their shots. And no one's making shots in the whole freaking NBA right now. Miami won this game shooting 39.5% because the Nets shot 38.8% from the field. We are in a severe offensive dump right now. Some of it is because of how officials are cracking down on foul calls. Guys are not getting calls, so they're just missing goofy looks at the rim. The only guys that are getting free throws, I shouldn't say only, but the vast majority of the volume foul shooters right now are big men. They're big men. Rudy Gobert leads the NBA in free throws per game. Then Giannis, Anthony Davis. That's the top 3. DeMar DeRozan at 7.5. He's your next one. Embiid, Jimmy Butler at 7 because he still finds a way. Adebayo at 7. The little guys that are still in the mix, Steph Curry, he's around 7. Jaws at 6.5. But basically, you're talking about big wings who have always been very good at drawing fouls in the paint. You know, these are DeMar DeRozan's going to the rim when he gets fouled. Jimmy Butler's going to the rim. The only shooter on that board that's getting fouled is Steph Curry, and he does more driving than people realize. And then as a result, you look at field goal percent for some of this stuff, and like DeMar DeRozan shooting 42%. Butler, 48. Steph, 43. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 45. Chris Middleton, 44. Brogdon, 44. Tatum, 42. Everybody sucks right now. Which, of course, is an unfair thing to say. These guys are the greatest basketball players in the universe, but they kind of suck right now. Do I have an explanation beyond the foul stuff? Yes, I do, actually. My explanation is, and I don't know that anybody would admit to it in the NBA, nor do, I mean, I don't care if they do or they don't, but because of the way the last now 17 months have gone since COVID hit NBA universe in March of 2020, the NBA players haven't had their normal break, if you catch my meaning. So when the NBA shut down in March, nobody really knew what was going on. So players went home, they isolated, whatever. They were like trying to stay in shape for a while. Nobody ever really shut themselves down. And then, it was okay, come back together in June, 2.5, 3 months later. Get back into shape, quick training camp, bubble, crazy bubble run. 2 months off, next season, less than 2 months until training camp. It's like a month and a half between the end of the finals and training camp. Then the next season came, and then we had the shortened off season again. If you guys, by the way, if you listening to this podcast feel like I do, when I hear that in my head and when I think back about what we've done on the fantasy NBA side, we didn't even really have to do fantasy stuff for the bubble. I did because we were bored as crap during that stretch. But there really hasn't been an opportunity for anybody to take a deep breath. So I think that these NBA players were like, look, I got a 3-month off season this time around. I am doing nothing. I am going to run on a treadmill and swim in a pool for the next 3 months. And whatever the hell happens at the beginning of the NBA season, I'm going to be healthy, but I'm going to be rusty. And I think we're getting some of that right now. So these guys are all playing themselves into season shape. The field goal percents will start to come up. The free throws will start to come up as well. I got sidetracked on a discussion of Bam Adebayo, and we'll come back to it now. The point of all of this is, Bam, 24-9 with 0 assists and 0 steals and 0 blocks. Do you guys really think that magically Kyle Lowry being in town has turned Bam Adebayo from a 2.3 combined steals and blocks guy per year to a 1.1? Do you really think that his turnovers, which are stuck at 2.5 and have been for the last 2.5 seasons, are going to stay the same, and his number of assists are going to drop from 5.5 to 1.5? Stop it. Look, I'm also a pragmatic fellow. There's a very reasonable chance that his assists do come down a little bit from 5.5 to something like maybe 3.5 or 4. And that's annoying. That puts a dent into his value. What I do like about Bam so far, he's been real aggressive on offense. He's currently averaging his highest number of shots per game at 13.5. His field goal percent is actually a little bit down right now, which I have to think that also probably comes up a little bit. Small sample size theater, as it may be. Free throw shooting's good on high volume so far. So there's actually a lot that's kind of hidden to like about Bam. Assists are going to come up. Rebounds are great. Steals and blocks are going to come up. The thing about this isn't even about Bam anymore. This is just about analysis. We're 4 games into the season for most of these guys. If these things happened in the middle of the year, we wouldn't blink an eye. But because it's the first 4 games, we're all trying to draw way more conclusions from things than we have to. Will Bam be a top 15 per game guy this year? No, I don't think he ever was going to be. And even during draft season, when I was like, I like Bam in the second round, I said to you guys, I was like, he's probably going to be like in the 20 range. He was 18 last year. Expectations that he would do a tiny bit less this season, so drop him back by a half round, whatever that is, 24. But the dude only misses games if someone lops a leg off. Totals matter. And you might even have a little bit of a buy low going on him right now. Meanwhile, Tyler Harrell, 14 and 8 rebounds this time, but the field goal percent thing, we knew it was going to level off eventually. He's, despite having what I would call a fairly brilliant start to the year, Tyler Herro is outside the top 100. This is just the magic of weird categories. Did you guys know Tyler Herro in 4 games does not have 1 steal or 1 block? Not 1. Did you guys know he's averaging 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists with 2 3-pointers and taking 19 shots a game, but he's only shooting 42.5% at nearly 3 turnovers a game, assist-to-turnover ratio of like 1.3 to 1? I know. It's weird. It seemed like he was blowing the roof off the building, and he's not inside the top 100 because you have to do stuff in those other categories. They matter. I still think you can probably sell high on him because I think most people saw what he did. He had that 30-point ball game. He had the 10-assist game, and they don't realize that he hasn't had a single steal or block so far. Or they do, and they don't care. I know I just spent a bunch of time talking about Miami. I actually think the biggest story in this game comes from the other side, and that's Bruce Brown now really locking himself into starters' minutes. He is a must-add player in all formats until we hear anything at all about Kyrie Irving. He's a defensive player who can hit some open shots. He fits in great. We saw how good he looked when guys were out late last year. So lock him in. Add Bruce Brown in as many places as you can. You're going to get rebounds, steals, some threes, and decent field goal percent from a guy who's shooting guard eligible. And I think played small forward and power forward at times last night. He might end up with eligibility like all the way across the board. Patty Mills, by the way, will probably bounce back. The fact that he's playing close to 30 minutes a game makes me think you probably can roll with him. Although, again, it's specialist appeal. Lakers lost to the Thunder, ugly ball game. Russell Westbrook got ejected. But who cares? I mean, we know the Lakers at this point. Melo is teetering on the brink of points league value. Don't trust him anything beyond that. Darius Baisley had his one big game every 2 weeks. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander starting to settle in a little bit, although the field goal percent is low right now. That was better. Josh Giddey, double-double. 18 points, 10 assists. That's a good look for him. It's going to be up and down. Remember, I'll keep saying that each time. So don't freak out when there's a great one. Don't freak out when there's a bad one. It'll level off, and he's just going to get better every month. So that's that thing. This is kind of what you call an active stash, although he's better than that because he's playing big minutes. But you're going to have those games where you're like, oh, no. And he just sinks you for a week. But you can see the potential built in. Minnesota, Milwaukee, not a whole lot of surprises here. I will say sell on D'Angelo Russell if you can get anything for him right now. Those good games, when they come along, that's your opportunity to try to get off of that ship. No to Jared Vanderbilt. Nope. Everybody wanted me to get Jaden McDaniels. I said nope. Now you guys ask me about Jared Vanderbilt. I say nope. Grayson Allen continues to be a solid stream on the Milwaukee side. Giannis had a big ball game. I think they need Drew Holiday back. Get this feeling. Curious, because George Hill played really well in this one. Only 9 points, but 4 assists, 3 steals. He's an efficiency guy. I don't know what the timeline is on Drew. They've been a little bit closed off with that information. And then Hill wasn't getting most of the minutes until this one. If we find out he's starting again, I'd be in for a George Hill spot start. Not someone that I'm racing out for. Sacramento, Phoenix, no surprises in this ballgame either. Darren Fox, tried to warn you guys. That's an overdraft staring you right in the face. Buddy Hield looks pretty good so far. Halliburton bringing the efficiency. Rashawn Holmes, awesome. Harrison Barnes has been crazy good. He's a sell high also, if that wasn't immediately evident. And it should be, because he's number 16 in 9-cat right now, and he's no way that he finishes this year inside the top 50. I shouldn't say no way. I guess there's a way, but he's currently shooting 51% and hitting over 4 3-pointers a game. Guys don't do that. Sorry. Is Harrison Barnes Steph Curry now? Probably not. That Phoenix season win total under was one of the easier ones. Nobody is as healthy as they were last year, then goes to the finals and has the same fire in their belly to start the next season. This is just a listless team with a finals hangover. You can do all the analysis you want. They're a listless team with a finals hangover. They'll figure it out. Every sport happens to every team in every sport. If you go to the finals and you win, you generally have a hangover. If you go to the finals and you lose, you always have a hangover. Because the regular season just doesn't feel important after that. Portland beat the Grizzlies 116-96. This was my bet for yesterday. I put that out on Twitter for you guys. I was on freebie duty for the Hoopball Gaming team. That means that your Wager Pass play goes out to the general public. On the Blazers -2, you just knew they were going to bounce back after how poorly they played against the Clippers. You didn't know how they were going to get there, but they got there somehow. Got off to a really bad start in the rebounding department, Portland, and they kind of turned that around later in the ballgame. Better defense for the Blazers. Anthony Simons was useful in that regard. He hit some 3-pointers. Nasir Little was good in that regard. And then Nurk's minutes were down in this one because, look, simple fact is Cody Zeller and Larry Nance Jr. as a duo were playing so much better defensively than the Nurkic-Rocco combination that the Blazers kept him out there a little bit longer. You're not picking up Cody Zeller because who cares? And the problem with Larry Nance right now is even in a game where he got a couple extra minutes, he was still mired at just 15. And he played well, 8 points, 5 boards, had himself a steal, 4 for 6 shooting. I continue to believe that at some point Portland will realize that they need to use more Larry Nance. I just don't know when it's going to happen. So as I put on Twitter, you know your league's better than I do. If you think you can drop him and nobody will pick him up, then drop him. Because he's annoying right now. But I like Larry Nance. He's one of my favorite 13th round draft picks this year. If he gets into the 20s in minutes the way we assumed he would at some point, he's a lock to beat that value. But right now, he's not. He's not getting the minutes. So I can't tell you have to hold on to it when there are hot free agents out there that are doing more than him. And it's not like Larry Nance has top 60 upside or something like that. So you're not hanging on for him to hit the jackpot. You'd be hanging on for him to hit mid to late rounder, which I still like and would be useful in all formats, but he ain't there yet. Dame continues to not shoot, at least well. Took 22 shots. I guess that's a good sign. 20 points, 10 assists for Dame. He was a little bit better in this one. was a more active distributor against a very bad Memphis defense. Ooh, the Grizzlies defense is bad. And then on the Memphis side, boy, did they stink in this ball game. I didn't say do, I said did. They don't stink overall, but they did stink in this ball game. Ja Morant had a solid one, although he did have 9 turnovers. Desmond Bane shot the ball well, and then no one else even bothered to wake up. JJJ nearly fouled out in 18 minutes. DeAnthony Melton went 0 for 8 shooting. Yowza. And Steven Adams got 17 quality minutes in the ball game. So, blech. Nasir Little on that Portland side is again, I mentioned this yesterday, he's probably worth a stream while Norman Powell's out, and we're waiting on more information there. And then finally, last game on a big Wednesday, going long here on the recap part of the show, Cleveland beat the Clippers in the ugliest game of the year easily, 92-79. Evan Mobley, double-double. Colin Sexton, 26 points. Darius Garland, 16-6. Kevin Love, double-doubled. Ricky Rubio, 15 off the bench in 28 minutes. Lauri Markkanen still can't make a damn bucket, but 9 rebounds and a steal, and he's just primed to take off. And Jared Allen was really the only big disappointment from the Cavs regulars. I really do like this Cleveland team, provided they can move a little quicker, play a little better than this ball game. They're a good rebounding team. They're defending, and it's weird to say, the additions of Markkanen and Rubio and then Mobley in the draft have really made a big difference for them. They're not as good as they've looked so far, but they are better than last year. So I need to take back some of the things I said about the Cavs being one of the worst teams in the NBA. They're just sort of a mediocre team now, and that's good. That's good enough to make them potentially fun. When you score 79 points, you're not going to have much fantasy value. Paul George was not very good. He did get 4 steals, though, and double-doubled. Reggie Jackson made 40% of his shots, which is actually a step up for him these days. Eric Bledsoe, 3 boards, 3 assists, 3 steals. I like that triple 3. Was going for a Yahtzee there, but 5 turnovers and missed most of his shots. I mean, it was generally ugly, so you're looking more for opportunity. So stick with Bledsoe. Obviously stick with Reggie Jackson, Paul George, of course. But the interesting note here is that Nick Batum played 32 minutes in this one. And I know some of that has to do with Marcus Morris being out working on strengthening his knee, but keep one eye on Nick Batum just in case it starts to stick in that starting unit. Remember, when he was playing big minutes last year, he was like a top 65 guy. You can't totally write that off. Big thank you to everybody who reached out yesterday on my recruiting pitches, not even on the podcast, but out on Twitter. I'll throw it out there again today. If you're looking to cover a team for us here at Hoopball, not necessarily in fantasy, but in reality, hit me up at Dan Besbris on Twitter, DANBESBRIS. Please do follow me over there. I've been doing all sorts of really interesting, I think, not games so much, but fantasy discussions on social media. I've been extremely active this year. It's one of my goals for this season is to really stay locked in on social, because that's where you can get stuff out quickly as opposed to sort of wrapping it all together into one daily podcast. Obviously, this will still be my baby. Don't worry, podcast isn't going anywhere. But I want to talk to you guys on Twitter. If you don't have it, get it, and then be very careful with who you follow, because it can get ugly super quick. Also, recruiting for salespeople at Hoopball, DFS writers, and full season fantasy. If you're interested in any of that stuff, hit me up at Dan Besbris on Twitter or email teamhoopball@hoop-ball.com. And also, thank you to everybody that continues to take those 90 seconds out of your day to rate and review the podcast on iTunes or the podcast app on your mobile device. Couple of reviews trickle in each day, and I appreciate that. That just means that a couple of you are like, you know what? Dan's right. Today's the day I should squeeze in a review. And I'll listen to the feedback too. One of the latest ones mentioned that I need to make sure to keep saying the player names instead of saying he over and over again, because it's easy to forget who I'm talking about when I go on a particularly long rant. I actually got told by someone else that I got a lot better at that over the last year. So I'll keep working on it, but hopefully that part is also true. But again, thank you for those that have done it. We're up to 719 reviews on the show. That's crazy. I can't believe we're at that point. Thinking back like 4 years ago when we had a handful and they were all from Hoopball people, and now over 700. Let's keep them coming. Thank you. Thank you to everybody for doing that for me. And now, your homework for this evening It's a slightly busier Thursday than usual. We got 6 games tonight. Atlanta is in Washington, taking on the Wizards on the back-to-back. You already heard Daniel Gafford ruled out, so Montrezl Harrell's an easy go. Hawks are a team where, we're continuing to track the wing minute stuff, but nothing's really shaking out so far. You kind of want to bench them all. You can't drop them, but you kind of want to bench them. I can't fault you for it. Detroit, Jeremy Grant, questionable right now. If he's out, you got to get Kelly Olynyk in your lineup. If he's in, I think you still might consider it. I do wonder if Dwayne Casey watched Olynyk play a bunch of power forward in that last ball game and thought, suppose I could try this. But who knows. Philly side, I'm mostly giving up on the streams in replacement of Ben Simmons, although against Detroit, maybe this is an opportunity for Tyrese Maxey to get it going again. It just seems like Seth Curry has grabbed, I know he had a bad last ball game, but it does seem like he's grabbed a lot of that momentum. And then fantasy-wise, his game just translates better to 9-cat. Utah, they are without surprises. Houston, they are exclusively surprises. You don't need to watch this game live if you don't want to, but obviously we're going to pay attention to whatever Houston is doing. Is Eric Gordon going to keep seeing minutes? Will Daniel Tice keep seeing these minutes? I know we're only a week into the season, but it still seems weird to roll Eric Gordon out there and risk what inevitably is going to be an injury, because dude hasn't stayed healthy for more than 3 weeks in years, and they're trying to move him. So what really is the plan there, Houston? Can guys like Christian Wood and Jayshawn Tate, even Kevin Porter Jr., who you guys know I hate his fantasy game, but these guys need to be the ones doing stuff right now. Look, Rockets, you're a bad team. Just lean into it. Knicks and Bulls, this should be a fun one. Just watch this game because it's going to be fun. I don't know that we're going to take a ton of fantasy stuff away, but, you can find out how does Mitchell Robinson handle Vooch as opposed to Joel Embiid in his last matchup. This should be, I think, maybe a little bit less complicated because Vooch isn't going right into his teeth quite the same way. What about Kemba Walker? Can he follow it up with another decent ball game? Maybe. I think the Knicks win this one, but it should be a fun ball game. Spurs and Mavericks, a little Texas battle. No Doug McDermott, so Devin Vassell, opportunity to maybe get a little bump on the Spurs side. You might even see Keldon Johnson take a few extra shots, which, again, he's really more of a points league guy, but it's out there. On the Dallas side, no Kristaps Porzingis. Does that mean we'll get enough Dwight Powell for a single ball game? And if we do, then we can put that in our pockets. I wouldn't say pick him up and start him here. I would say watch it, put it in your pocket, and if Powell's good here, then the next time Porzingis misses a ball game, then you go ahead and hit the go button. Green light it. I'm waiting for Dorian Finney-Smith to actually start making some of his shots because that's a dude who's getting plenty of playing time, and the peripheral stuff is excellent. 1 steal, 1 block, 7 boards, almost 2 assists, about a 3-pointer, but 32% on 9 shots a game. We need that coming up by probably about 13%, which is effectively more than 1 additional made field goal. So you add 1 more field goal in there. I don't know how many are going to be 3-pointers, but suddenly he goes from 7, 7, and 2 with a steal and a block and almost a 3-pointer to like 9 or 10 points, 7 and 2 with a 3-pointer, 1 steal, 1 block on 45% shooting, and that is a top 85 guy. I think Dorian Finney-Smith ends up in that 85 to 90 range. It really feels like he's hanging on there, and I don't think you're going to have to fight anybody to the death for him right now because of how far down the board he is, but that's almost exclusively because he cannot hit a shot. The other stuff looks pretty good. Grizzlies on the back-to-back. Flew down from Portland. They'll take on the Warriors tonight. This is not an easy back-to-back. Warriors favored by 5.5. I do think Memphis plays better because the whole team was just crap against the Blazers yesterday. You wonder if there was any kind of Los Angeles, I don't want to say hangover because that has implications, but that was sort of like the marquee game, and then everybody had the letdown. And would this be the one they wake back up again? You got to think Ja's going to be fired up to play against Steph Curry on the opposite side. I cannot imagine that JJJ and Melton and Adams and all of those guys are as bad again here on the back-to-back. So from a betting side, I think I kind of like the Grizzlies in this ball game. And then from a fantasy side, I don't expect a whole lot in terms of new information here. Warriors seem relatively predictable at this point. Grizzlies relatively predictable outside of the sort of if they don't wake up for a night kind of game. And that's your Thursday. So no real homework. A couple of things to pay attention to, individual items to sort of key in on. Kelly Olynyk is a key item. The Atlanta Wings are a key item. The whole Houston roster is a key item. Kemba, Spurs without McDermott, Mavs without Porzingis. Like, there's no team-wide thing I'm really paying close attention to, but a lot of little miniature action items that are kicking around on the board. Just watch Knicks and Bulls and enjoy it. Let TNT take you on home. Okay, that'll do it. That's your Thursday show. Again, tomorrow, the great Aaron Brewski back on the pod. Looking forward to that one. We'll be recording our segment a little bit later on today, and then we'll do what I like to call the sandwich, where I'll record the beginning and the end, and you'll be able to tell because I told you about it. Again, hit me up on Twitter, at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris. Look forward to talking to you guys there. This is Fantasy NBA Today, show 28 in 28 days in the month of October. 3 to go. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we roll right into a damn week again. I don't get a break. It's actually 36 shows in 36 days. That's a pisser, isn't it? And then we'll finally take a weekend off, which is good because I'm going to a wedding that weekend. First thing I'm basically doing outside of the house in 17 months. 19 months. How long's it been? 20? Stop it. This is Fantasy NBA Today. That thing I know for certain. I know I'm Dan Besbris, and I know I will talk to you guys soon. So long, everybody.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.
You should be saving for the future, but savings accounts suck, and investing can be scary. We combine the ease of savings with the real returns of investing. We call it Savesting, and it's only available in our new app, Stairs. Stairs offers 4 to 6% returns, no fees, and you can withdraw anytime. Do your future a favor. Visit StairsApp.com today.
At Kings Island, it's never too early to start thinking about next year's fun. That's why we're offering the lowest price of the year on a 2022 Gold Pass right now. That includes unlimited visits this year, so you can enjoy Tricks and Treats Fall Fest, Haunt, and Winterfest. Then unlimited visits next year to try new foods, hang with the Peanuts gang at Planet Snoopy, scream on our world-class coasters, and splash away at Soak City Water Park. All for as low as $105 plus applicable taxes and fees. Hurry, offer ends October 31st, so get your Gold Pass now at visitkingsisland.com. It's amazing in here.